evening and welcome to Tinkering with Edkelar. Time for something different again. A random pick from the pile of backlogged items. It is a keyboard. Of the musical variety. An Edirol PC80 made by Roland. For the technical side, it is just a keyboard with an integrated USB sound card. There is no sound generation inside the device itself. For that, it relies on the bundled software. But it can be used as a MIDI device and it has a stereo input for the included amplifier. The idea is to listen to other instruments while playing. But you can hook it up to any MIDI sound creation device and loop it back into the line in for a PC-free playing experience. So, how did I come by this one? About half a year ago, I was offered this unit for a restoration project. Nobswolf, another friend in Germany, asked me if I wanted to take it in for a project video before he scraps it, and I just couldn't say no. Now, after bumping into it for several months, I decided it was a good time to take care of it, so let's see what we find inside. First off, when I took it out of my storage room, I realized a small puddle underneath. Whoops! I wasn't expecting that. I've heard of well-tempered pianos, but an incontinent one. I have to mention it up front. My filming setup isn't really set up for something this wide. So sorry for only ever showing part of it in frame. Like usual, I'm opening up the case by undoing every screw I can find. I use a magnet to pull out the screws. It is an old hard disk head magnet in a plastic bag. The bag makes it easy to remove metal chips that get stuck. The top cover comes off, and here's a bunch of connections between the top and bottom PCBs. Thankfully, they are all plugged in. Yes, there is goo on the inside too. Let's poke Nobswolf about that. Aha! You don't say. Oh! Turns out that the keyboard has been situated under a fruit basket, and it would seem that something dripped down from there and made its way into the case. Sticky, but at least not an immediate cause for alarm. The actual keyboard unit comes out a bit too easy. Turns out that about half the screws in the bottom were not for the case, but rather the keyboard itself. Whoops! And here's where we see the sticky problem. Whatever it was, it dripped down on some of the keys and then, during shipping or storing, it ran down and escaped on the side. The speakers actually have a resonance box. Neat. The pitch bend control is a block in itself. And the speakers also come out of their box. Now to the keyboard block. The ribbon cable that connects it to the PCB is oddly soldered in on one connector and plugged in on the other one. And here's where the repetitive stuff starts. All the keys need to come off for some decent cleaning. First, remove the springs. It would seem that there are only two different kinds. The white and the black keys are different, but there is no upper or lower end difference. And with the springs gone, the keys are liberated. Run! Run free! Ew, yuck! The PCB for the key mechanism are now finally accessible, and I can remove another load of screws. This explains the strange cable routing. There are two PCBs in here. I think it is cheaper to have smaller PCBs made than a single oversized one. The keys move around a piece of rubber, and somebody decided that it needs greasing. Mixing the sticky goo with that, brrr! Good thing I have stagehands and didn't have to experience this weird, sticky yet slippery at the same time feeling myself. You can see here the keys are dampened with strips of felt. This makes for a decent tactile experience and also avoids clicking when playing. The goo has left a stain on them, which I need to address, and also parts of the felt aren't sticking anymore. Needs replacing. The PCBs hold a bunch of diodes. Clearly, this is nothing more than an oddly arranged key matrix, like you would find in a typical PC keyboard. The diodes are required to avoid false detections when multiple keys are pressed at the same time. I'm sure the matrix works just like any other keyboard. But what might be interesting is the fact that the membrane has two contact points per key. This is done to have dynamics on the keys. One of the pads is set to close slightly later than the other, by the magic of being slightly shorter, and when you hit the key, the controller sees the two contacts made with a slight delay. The amount of delay is of course proportional to the speed or force with which you hit the key. That allows to distinguish between a soft and a firm hit. Cleanup time! Finally time to get rid of that, orange? Grape? The jury is still out on that, as we didn't find anybody willing to taste it. And again, cleaning the keys, one at a time. Cleaning the pitch bend joystick. There are 2 potentiometers and return springs in it. The stick part of the control lives up to its name, totally sticky. It's a bit like these soft plastic covers that get tacky over time. It took some serious IPA to clean that off, but it is nice and smooth now. Since the device is reasonably new, recapping and potentiometer cleaning are not required. This one is newer than my usual cutoff for these procedures. putting the keyboard membrane back was annoying. It has these little pegs that go through the PCB for both alignment and holding them in place. To try out the keyboard function, I'm connecting all the PCBs on the bench and see if I can get some MIDI output. Just to clarify, as it is not the topic of this video, stagehands cannot play any musical instrument, aside from a few chords on the keyboard, but he tried to learn it anyway, way back in the day, and from that time we got another Roland made device around. A mobile studio sound canvas. It can take MIDI input and create instrument sounds as an output. Should be the perfect test case for the keyboard. Nope. There is an LED for data activity and it blinks when I hit the key, but I don't get anything on my other MIDI device. Now, it took ages for me to realize what was going on here, because when I switched to powering the keyboard via the barrel jack instead of the USB, center negative, I finally got output on the MIDI. Apparently, when you connect the keyboard to the PC via USB, it creates a MIDI channel as a USB device and uses that one to play. But what caught me by surprise is, it is not the connection to the PC that decides that, but the power source via USB. The functional diagram shows MIDI from the keyboard in both modes though, but that might involve some software setting. Anyhow, I'm pretty sure that my power bank doesn't provide a host controller. Good, now that I know that it works in general, I'm putting the keys back on. I found a pack of felt for pianos and keyboards. Might not be top-notch quality, but then again, this isn't a 100-year-old instrument either. Cutting it to the required strips after putting a length of double-sided tape on it. That's just about the only way I could cut that thing even remotely straight. And no, scissors don't quite work. And sticking it to the frame. Note that it is straight enough, but not quite perfect. As long as the dampening of the keys works and nothing binds up, it's good. For the upper damper, I'm using smaller strips of double-sided tape only. This makes it a bit easier to install. It might sag a bit, but that is unlikely, since any non-pressed keys will always hold up the rest of the felt. And how often and for how long would you push all the keys at once? Since the black ones are all the same and need to go on first anyway, I'll start with those. I did count keys for them to get in the right location, like 1, 2, skip a few, but the spring clips in the rear are dead giveaways. Much easier that way. Good, now that all the black keys are in, let's give it one more try. Well, nope. I have about 50% of the black keys working like they should. The other half is either not working at all or requires some serious whack to even register. Ahem. Turns out that I completely forgot about a little detail. The reason why Nobswolf offered it as a project video was that, and I quote, "Some of the keys have issues." I guess I mentally filed that under the control keys and not the keyboard keys, and then also forgot about it. So off with the keys again. And also off with the membrane again. I got a can of graphite spray that is supposed to renew these pads. And since there are 2 distinct pads per key, we need to make sure that we are not cross-connecting them. Well, masking does not work, and building a fixture for them seems to be too much effort. So, here goes nothing. Literally. Out of propellant? How did that happen? Oh well, I got air for a quick refill. I spritzed a bit of the graphite lacquer on my pad and then used a small brush to manually paint on the contact points. This time I'm going through all the keys before putting any spring on that thing. Yes, they all seem to work. Now let's get started again. The black keys, and then the white ones. Those were a special puzzle. Pretty much every position inside an octave has a specific shape, some only off by a millimeter. And after putting on all the springs again, finally the keyboard mechanism is done. The speakers are next. And now, bringing the PCBs in again. But I think I'm running out of black screws. What gives? Oh, for crying out loud. Turns out that the nice black PCB of the keyboard was indeed held in with the golden set of screws. And so... Oh, and one of the case screw holes was busted. Not sure if that was a transport issue or if that was an older damage, but the break is clean enough to fix with a sheet of plastic and epoxy glue. There should be little to no strain on it, given that there are more than a handful of other screws around. Connecting the wiring again. And closing the lid. Forget it, that will never catch on. And that's it. I really wish Stagehand would learn how to play one of those things, but somehow he doesn't seem to have a musical side. Still, the keyboard works again, and it was a, mostly, fun little project. I hope you enjoyed watching. See you next time! This makes it a bit easier to install. I might... Not I might sag a bit, it might sag a bit. Darn it.
The number you dialed is not a working number. Please check the number and dial again.